Oh boy, should we talk about the next one?
I don't know. I don't remember what the next match was, actually. There were so many matches. What was the next match?
The next match was for the World Tag Team Championship. Swerve and Keith Lee against the Acclaimed.
Now, this was my favorite match of the entire night. Even probably more than the Punk match. I think this was my favorite match of the night.
This was the one. Well, you would expect Punk to tear the house down in Chicago. This was not expected to tear the house down. And it did. And they brought Jim Ross in. They're an hour and a half into this show plus the pre-show. So about halfway in, 2.5 hours. JR comes in. And here comes Max Caster. Of course, now I'm on the streaming bullshit instead of real television. So normally I'll transcribe his rap. I'll pause it. I'll back it up a little bit. But we had tried to back up the Bleacher Report to watch a fucked up spot earlier. We did try to and we ended up backing up 3 minutes instead of 5 seconds or whatever. So I said, fuck it. I'm leaving it alone. So he had a nice rap, but at this point, I couldn't take a lot more. I had to shit. I needed a fucking drink. I needed to stretch my legs. I figured, what the fuck? The way this show is going, this is going to suck. And I come back 10 minutes later, they're tearing the fucking house down. So, again, by the end of this thing, for whatever Bowens and Caster pulled out of themselves, they had the fucking people. The match was cooking. The place was going ballistic. And the people thought, and I started thinking along with them, my God, they're going to win this thing. And I was just thinking they should win. And maybe they're going to do it because the belts mean nothing now. The AEW World Tag Team title means nothing because it went the way it went instead of a recognized team. Keith Lee and Swerve mean nothing because they got the belts that nobody wanted to see them get because they were supposed to go to FTR. But the Acclaimed winning these belts would have made the Acclaimed mean something, especially to this crowd and these diehard fans. And just as I wrote that, Keith Lee and Swerve beat them and the people booed. And it was ready, even if they had to call an audible. And some other people have said this also. They should have put the belts on those kids and it would have meant something. And they had one spectacular false finish where it looked like that was going to happen. And then, boom, Lee and Swerve just won. And Lee and Swerve, who are supposed to be baby faces, and the people booed him. And did you hear Taz say whatever the fuck that instigated it? But he had the line, well, sometimes, teams don't get along in legitimate sports. So that the announcers can't even remember not to call wrestling fake on the wrestling program. But then Billy Gunn, who was in the corner of the Acclaimed, scissored Keith Lee and the people booed again. And then they all just had to kind of walk off and it was flat. People don't give a shit about Keith Lee and Swerve. And it's because of the belts they got and the way they got them. The fact that it came out of nowhere. And that Keith Lee, Swerve ain't bad. Keith Lee is just, I can't believe how well they hid him in the NXT system.
I'm now convinced he's better as a heel.
Yes, because of that voice and the way he talks. It's insufferable. And
I was just talking about the match. But okay.
Well, no, I'm talking about that fucking voice and that promo and just the shit-sniffing look he gets on his face. And he came out like a heel anyway, bask in my glory, and the thing he'd do where he'd lead the fans to, and he'd get the shit-sniffing look like he's smelling his greatness. But they hit him in NXT, and you could see the physical potential, and a guy that size, he could move well. But then he's gotten fatter and gotten out of that system, and he talks more than we heard him in NXT, and that's definitely a negative because of that sing-song little voice he has. So Acclaimed could have got over here if they'd have just changed that around. It was unexpected, I'll say that. You loved it.
Yeah. I thought it was fantastic. It was a wrestling match. I mean, sure, there was a couple things on the floor, but it was a wrestling match. It was in the ring. I've known that the Acclaimed have gotten themselves over. And I knew I thought they'd be one of the more over acts. Hate to use that word, sorry, Jim. One of the more over teams on the event. Now I'm watching what I say. It's like I'm working with Vince. I knew they'd be over. I did not think it would be that over. Those fans loved them, and they loved Billy Gunn. I heard in the house it was insane. We'll play audio later from the press scrum of Tony talking about the decision not to call an audible, the awkward decision to ask that question while the team is sitting there, and then we'll talk about Tony's answer.
These two fucking dickheads are sitting there with Pete in hand. Clearly not the audience's favorite choice. And the reporters are saying, so, Tony, why didn't you have these guys just beat those two fucking guys sitting there next to you?
And it is unfair to them. Because you know what? As I just said, I think both of them as a heel tag team, after watching this match, yeah, I see something there. And unfortunately, the situation with the tag belts happened. And they won the tag belts they never pinned the Young Bucks. And they got the tag belts. So the whole division right now is a little bit messy. And it's unfair to them because they're not going to get a fair chance here. Now, a lot of people are thinking that the reason Tony did not call an audible here is because they're about to run Long Island. Max Caster's from Rockville Center. The worst place to park.
Wait a minute. You mean Max Caster used to live in the basement of London Publishing?
Not in the basement, but probably in the general vicinity. I don't know where he lives, but I don't want to give a better clue than that.
Rockville Center.
The greater Rockville Center area, yeah.
It's greater now.
The worst place to park. Those fucking parking meters everywhere. They just wait. The cops wait. It's a fucking racket. They just want to get you in that little courtroom so you'd pay $60 or whatever and leave. Okay, we won't give you any points. We won't report it. We won't tell anyone. Just give us the cash. Bunch of crap.
There sounds like there's a little experience in that recitation of that.
I've dated several women from the general Rockville Center vicinity and area. So
where were you parking? Where were you parking your unit?
That was one of the problems, was finding the parking. Yeah.
Finding a place to park your unit with those girls from Rockville Center.
Best bakery, though, if you ever want crumb cake. The Front Street Bakery.
I heard the best bakery was Sally's in Chicago. Wasn't that them?
No, you don't even get the name right. What was it, Molly?
Molly? Sally?
No, but Front Street Bakery, crumb cake, it's all crumb, no cake. It's the most delicious thing ever. But
that sounds crummy to me.
But the thought is that the Acclaimed, I don't know how we got going with this, the Acclaimed may win the titles on Long Island. And while in theory, and maybe the way it gets executed, it sounds like a great idea, a sound idea. What do you think? Would you have called an audible here?
You had the moment. Sometimes you don't get those back. What if it rains at Arthur Ashe Stadium? Do they have a roof? I don't fucking know. But it was right there on pay-per-view, big crowd, blah, blah, blah. So sometimes that doesn't happen again. Conditions have to be right.
We've seen a lot of the Acclaimed, and they've gotten themselves over, but it was never really about the match. It was never about they had a classic match. This was, in a lot of ways, the most memorable match of the night. Yeah,
it has to be the best match that they've ever had in their career because listen to that crowd.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, so Tony shit all over that, boys. Anyway,